Welcome to Franchise Canada Chats, the podcast that takes you inside the world of Canadian franchising. I'm Renée Boudakian, founder and CEO of Rubicon Franchise Partners and your host for Season 9. This season, we're going beyond the business model to uncover the real stories of franchise owners, the risks they took, the lessons they learned, and the successes they built. Join us as we sit down with franchisees, their franchisors, and industry experts to discuss emerging trends, cutting-edge technologies, and operational strategies shaping the future of franchising. Whether you're thinking about buying your first or next franchise, this podcast is your inside track to franchise success in Canada. On today's episode, we're joined by husband and wife duo Andrew and Kimberly Severson, franchisees with Wild Birds Unlimited, a retail franchise that specializes in backyard bird feeding with a mission to bring people and nature together. And for just over a year and a half, Andrew and Kimberly have been fulfilling on that mission at their first franchise location in Surrey, British Columbia. Both are professional accountants, and Andrew brings more than 20 years of entrepreneurial experience to the table. Together, they have a particular passion for the financial side of franchise ownership, and we're excited to dive into their story and insights they gained along the way. So let's spread our wings and get started. Andrew and Kimberly, welcome to Franchise Canada Chats.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
It's our pleasure. So I'd love to get into your story right away and have you tell us a little bit about life before franchising. I know that you both have an accounting vocation background. What led you to accounting and what experiences did you gain in that field before kind of segueing into franchising?
Ooh, good question. I think it's sort of the career path sort of just has sort of evolved. At a young age, I always wanted to run my own business and do my own thing. I had a couple people in my life, like my aunt and uncle, who were also accountants, and I always looked up to them to be like, wow, that's something cool. I didn't really like sciences or other types of work, but I liked business. So I figured accounting was the right thing to jump into, not knowing where it was going to take. Went to a college around the corner, Kwantlen University College, and that sort of opened me up to various different opportunities and advantages there. So with that, yeah, we sort of just went right into accounting, and I worked for a firm for a little while because you need to get experience. But a couple of years into it, I realized I could make a whole bunch more money if I went on my own. So yeah, after 3 years working at a firm, I quit and started up my own little accounting practice.
Love it. And did you think of entrepreneurship, growing up? Did you think that this was going to be the path for you, business ownership?
Business ownership, yes. Franchise specifically, no. One of my first businesses that I had was a franchise, and it was actually in the roofing industry. And going through that process, I was quite frustrated in the lack of care and attention that the franchisor showed towards the franchisees. There wasn't a lot of support. It was a lot of franchise fees and having to buy certain products and making payments back to the franchisor, but it wasn't a super great experience. So that was my first little bit into the franchise world. It was roofing, not my accounting vocation. It was sort of the summertime jobs that you get into, just like painting things when you're in college. And so from that point on, I was like, I need to run my own. I don't want to have people telling me what to do, how to do it, because it was usually not right. It was quite funny. I would come up with little spreadsheets and analyses on their products and tell them that, hey, you should increase your price point here, discontinue this product, change the sales strategy. And basically, I just got shut down all the time.
It's so interesting you say that because it reminds me of the story of, have you ever seen the movie The Founder?
Oh, I don't think so.
It's about the McDonald's story, but anyway, they used to have this like really big menu with like all kinds of stuff. And then they saw that majority of their sales were coming from burgers, fries, and the soft drinks. And so they really condensed the menu. And anyway, when you were describing kind of the numbers of what makes sense, take this off, add this, it was reminding me of that movie. So I was just curious.
Interesting. Yeah, that franchise that I was with, they went out of business because they didn't have their financial model set. We continued roofing, went on independent, a brand like our own brand. But yeah, that franchise was not successful. So
And were you, so just so I have the timelines right, were you doing that business and also your accounting practice at the same time?
yeah, I was a student, so
Oh,
technically
okay.
I'm
So we're
allowed to have an
talking,
accounting practice. So this was, yeah, this was back into the early
You
years
put
of
yourself
college.
through college, yeah.
It's how I paid for school. All right, I started a business, but then went with the franchise because you didn't have to market, you didn't have to come up with the sales strategies, you didn't have to do any of that vision. You just had to operate. And I found at that point when you're at school, you don't have a, it's very demanding, all the different sides coming together. And so the franchise sort of made sense at that time.
very interesting. And for yourself, Kimberly, what was your background and like led you also into the franchise world as well?
Oh, I mean, the franchise world is a very recent development. So I took to accounting and numbers early on. I had a business class in high school, and my mom was an accountant, so it made sense really early on for me. So I did my accounting degree and got my professional letters, and then I worked in the financial industry for a long time. So I was there in a credit union for about 17 years and left there when things changed in our lives, needed some different flexibility, needed to be able to work with Andrew on some of our own books. That was about 8 years ago, and the franchise thing just sort of fell into our laps about 2 years ago. So that was it's my very first foray into franchise world.
I love
Yeah.
it.
I think
Well,
you're getting dragged along for the ride instead of
It dragged along. My life would be very different without Andrew in my life. He is the visionary, he's the ideas guy, he's the don't worry, Kimberly, it'll work out guy. And I'm the but what about, but what about, but what about? And he's just like, it's okay, you can do this. And I come along for the ride.
I think, I mean, it's good to have that voice of like just asking the questions. And it's also good. It sounds like you guys are a really great partnership and duo together where, Andrew has the visions and you balance him out to
I have
bring
the
him.
worrying.
Yes. You bring him back to,
the
to
ground
be,
me.
yes, exactly the word I was looking for. Um, and so, how did you guys find Wild Birds Unlimited? There are so many franchise businesses out there. How did you find Wild Birds? Tell me the story of that.
So as the practice was getting on, I had hired an accounting coach to help me sort of rethink my business. At that time, I guess that was about 2018, 19, I was working, oh, every single minute of the day was going into accounting work, doing tax returns, meeting clients. I did have a few staff, but basically burning out. That's essentially what was happening, right? I didn't like to talk to people, didn't want to do anything, but just the piles of work never ended. And so I was introduced to an accounting coach who I hired for about a year to help me change my mindset of what I was doing. I felt stuck at that point. Being an entrepreneur, you do the work, you set the systems up, but sometimes you need a little bit of a nudge that's outside your headspace to help you make those transitions. So we went off on this thing of retiring when you're 40. And so I had to do a lot of groundwork, had to change what I thought. Basically, we took the accounting practice and flipped it upside down with everything that we did. Still high quality work, but I built in processes where I was training other people to be the front runners and to basically move over to let them have their own wings for my accounting, essentially. So after a number of years of doing that, I got to the point where I needed something else to fill my time so that I could physically remove myself from accounting. And I think that was very important because if you don't have anything else to do, you go back to what you were doing all the time, right? And doing tax returns and getting involved and still sticking your hands in everything. But I think that really stifles the other people in your organization being able to do their things on their own and make the mistakes and be okay with that. So, yeah, I had to change how I thought about the business, changed how I had to change my perception of what I did, right? So I wasn't an accountant anymore. I turned myself into more of a business coach, and all my staff were my little franchisees. So I tried to flip it around to that. Anyway, once that was sort of in progress, one of my clients had owned the wild birds in Surrey, and we were sort of looking for some kind of investment or something to do in addition to the accounting practice. And we started looking at liquor stores and, all various different kinds of businesses. But this one came for sale, and I helped the previous owner set up the valuation and prep it for sale. And at that point, wasn't really interested in franchises. Based on my prior experience, I was like, nope, this is I know what I'm doing. I'm confident what I do. If I need some help, I'll go get it. I'll pay for it. But the farther I helped her go down the road, the more I started thinking that, if you get into the franchise and you get into a great one that is set up properly, there could be a number of different advantages. My strategy was, how do I get my time back, right? Because that's the pretty much the only thing I have. And if I can get that back, then I can go do all other kinds of things. I started getting into cycling as well during that time of burning out. And I found that that was a really good exercise or something that I could help me through relieving stress. I would go off on, 2 hour bike rides, which turned into 8 hour bike rides, which turned into week-long bike rides, and had so much fun with that. And through the process, helping the previous owner, I said, well, if I start my own business again, I know what it's about. The marketing, you're the only person there. You can be really isolated in doing that. And seeing how she had interacted with the franchise and meeting more of the franchise team, I thought, okay, this might be something that was good. I was at the point where I started to value the time and what the franchise could offer to us to get my time back or our time back to do things. So yeah, that was sort of how it started and happened.
I was
Um,
gonna say the week-long bike rides. I don't think that's called a bike ride anymore. Yeah, I think that must have a different name to it, like
Oh,
a
bike
like a
packing.
Bike
yeah,
packing.
like
Yeah, you're
a
gone.
marathon of some
Yeah, yeah,
sort.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's so interesting. I think this is the first first time I've chatted where the opportunity came from a client of yours, and you had such deep intel really into the business because you're the accountant helping her prepare all her numbers, so you know the business by the numbers, which is your favorite thing, inside and out. So very, very interesting. And so you started thinking more along this line, the opportunity presents itself, and then you came to Kimberly and you said, I'm thinking about buying this business, or like walk me through that conversation.
He just came home one day. I'd been hearing about this. I knew about this business. It's an iconic business in our neighborhood. Everybody kind of knows about it. And he had been talking about trying to get her to help her to sell. And he comes home one day and he's like, "Hey, so you know that business?" And I'm like, "I know that tone of voice. I know what's coming." He goes, "What if we bought it?" And I was like, "Here we go." Because I had all the reasons why this would be a bad idea. I said, "We don't know squat about birds. What do you mean you want to do a franchise? What do you mean you want to do? What are you talking about? You don't have time. I don't have time. We have young kids. What are you talking about?" But he, again, had the vision to see this as all kinds of benefits for our family. Getting our kids into nature more, having a reason to do these things, having a reason to get our kids involved in a family business again. Um, all kinds of reasons why this is. He's like, just let me think about it. Let's just see what happens. And I'm like, yeah, here we go. And now we're here.
I love it. I mean, he had the vision. And so what was it about the brand that made you both fall in love? You said you used the word Kimberly iconic, that Wild Birds Unlimited is iconic.
Just the
What
building. Yeah, the building itself has been there for so long on this very
yes.
busy corner in South Surrey. And so it felt like something that was probably really well established, even though I didn't know much about it. And it was just something that clearly people knew about, and clearly this was a business that was going. We just didn't know much about it. Yeah.
So let's talk about the building because, as you said, there was some very interesting things that happened with the building, and we're gonna jump ahead and then we're gonna come back into the story. But let's go to the point where you signed the franchise agreement. You are the franchisee now of that location, and you move into the building, the iconic known building. But if I'm not mistaken, pretty quickly, that building had been there for 30 plus years in that location, but you had to move locations. You're not in that building anymore. So tell me a little bit about what that experience was like, that you get into this location that has been there, a staple in the community for 30 plus years. And then how many months into being a franchisee did you have to then make the decision to move locations?
Oh man, I mean, it was pretty clear early on that this was not a long-term solution, but we didn't come to it right away. We have, I don't know, I mean, you said we don't, how do you have 3 hours to hear stories about rodents and buildings falling apart and electrical issues?
Yeah, no, you kind of knew that it was old. The building was, I think, built in the 40s or 50s. It had a number of businesses grew up in that and then moved on
It was a house
there.
originally,
Yeah, yeah, it was a house.
actual
It
residential
was
house. Yeah.
back when there's dirt roads, right? Dirt roads between it. Now this location is basically in the heart of our little city down in South Surrey, and it's the busiest corner. You've got two major roads that intersect it. And so, yeah, everybody in the community knows that building. They might not know what it does, but it was very, very prominent in the community. And because it was nature, you sort of with this little like quirky thing that, okay, it's birds, it's nature, something's going on, the parking lot's always full. We knew it, but we had never
But yeah,
shopped there
so the
before.
building itself, um, uneven floors, um, potential electrical hazards, and just rodents. Rodents were the number one
Yeah.
problem,
You sort
I'd
of
say.
you take over a business, and it's kind of like getting an old car, right? You buy it, you kind of have done a walk around, you know it's got rust here, you know it's got a bunch of things have to be done, but you don't really know, right? Because we weren't operators. We weren't there 24/7 doing the running the business at all. So they had a manager, they had staff, the other owner basically was hands off at the transition point. And so we sort of sat back and watched, and just to see, get a
Learn
feel,
to
just
learn.
watched and
Yeah.
learned to get a feel for how the business was running. And I would go around and talk to people and see what they're doing, and it was like I, I was dumbfounded more often than not of like, why are you doing it this way? I understood why, being a small business, growing it up, having it in the family, and all these processes and things they did were just because it evolved that way. But I don't think anybody had come in and said, did a deep dive on saying, how could you improve this, or what were the problems and solutions for it? That's my gift, right? I can walk in and go, here's the lay of the land, but that's where you should be. And then I can see the path on how to get there. Yeah, we operated there for about a year, but I think the realization came. I was in the back cleaning things, probably cleaning things I probably shouldn't have been cleaning. And last November, and I got really sick. Like never been so sick in my life. Yeah, it took about 5 weeks to get over, 6 weeks. And during that process of being on my back and not being able to do anything, like the health side sort of the store came to the forefront. And it's like I can't subject anybody, any workers, my kids, customers in this place. And I'm not 100% sure if it was, from the store or not. But I couldn't take that risk. And being that ill, sort of woke up one morning saying, this is now the time to move. There's a bunch of things stacking up for that. The business had grown a lot over the past number of years, and the parking was a big issue. We would have probably 13 out of 10 people complaining about the parking. Like that percentage, it was so high.
Yeah.
And we didn't realize how much that would affect people. You'd have some customers that come in and they would be grumpy, right? And it's like, well, this is a hobby store. It's supposed to be high energy, bringing people in fun, bringing people to nature. But it's like there's something was wrong. So we sort of made the decision to move, and it wasn't like we had to bang on a whole bunch of doors. We sort of made that decision and then you wait, right? And you see what was coming up. We didn't have a building. There was no alternate building, for rent. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know how to do it, but just that was the switch that we needed to do.
I love that. And so I'd love to know from, I guess, the support systems that your franchisor offers, how did they support you, or what support did you receive in finding new real estate?
Yeah, so when you tell the franchise that you want to maybe change locations, they do a bunch of analysis for you. So first they want to know what's the problem at the current location, and they were well aware of the problems at the current location. And then when we found a space, not very far away at all, just a couple of kilometers down the same road, they do a bunch of analysis. So they say, okay, what's in the area? How's the access? What's the parking? Where does it relate to your current customer base? And because it was all very close to the original store, all those boxes got ticked immediately. Then they say, hey, like, you guys have to go and do your own lease negotiations and stuff, but we can help if you need support. We're here to provide whatever, backup chats or anything that you need. So number one was all the analysis. Does this make sense from a business point of view? Because they want us to succeed because then they succeed, right? That's the beauty of the franchise model. So, yeah, do you have anything else that they?
No, it was pretty once we made the decision to go, and it wasn't, moving it to some building where it had no exposure and, it wasn't a bad location. Then we got the green lights and it was pretty good. And they would help out through the whole process. One thing I really liked was we got a floor plan and a build out schematic. We're sort of, we've built a couple houses and done a few things for construction. So I really liked that opportunity to be able to go in there and tinker with the store to basically, put it together. So instead of having to come up with the blue plan, floor plan, what colors, where do things go? Jen was basically gave us a little floor plan with what we need to do, and I got to take the next couple months and tinker with it and bring in all the supplies and build.
But even within that, Renee, they provide best practices. They say this is, there are certain non-negotiables that have to happen, but there's also a fair amount of room to be like, you guys can make it personal. You can make it local. You can use materials that make sense to, the Pacific Northwest because the franchise is located in Indiana. They have different materials. So we were able to do a little bit more and make it a little bit more unique and suit our needs. And that really speaks to what I believe is the secret sauce to this franchise. The framework, the support, this is how you do things. These are the best practices, and go forth and manage it the way that makes sense to you as well.
I think that is such great insight. And also, I do believe it speaks volumes to a great franchisor who has, there's flexibility in that it's not so rigid. I was, where did I hear this? Just yesterday, I heard this, where there was a franchise that had in their operations manual, you need to get the stir sticks from this one manufacturer. Well, the stir sticks were out of stock for 3 months, and then they would just have disgruntled customers that didn't have stir sticks. So being flexible where it makes sense and being maintaining those standards. Also, I think that balance is what's really important. What I'd love to go back to, Andrew. So we're talking about it naturally segued into talking a little bit about the building and that journey, because I'm sure you did not maybe anticipate moving so quickly, but you realized it was a necessity, especially after that health scare. But if we go back to when you were still kind of making the decision to buy the business, one question that comes up, which maybe is going to be a favorite question of yours, is around capital. And there's a question around how do individuals gather the capital to invest in businesses. And there's all different pathways that the franchisees that we've spoken to have obtained that initial investment. I'd love to hear from your side. How did you guys do it for Wild Birds Unlimited? Did it come out of savings? Was it a combination of like savings plus loan? How did you guys make it happen?
Yeah, being an accountant, having clients who have resources, I've tapped into that a couple times, either to deal with to get into properties or joint ventures. So basically, we used some of our savings, some of our cash flow from our existing accounting company. But as well as we had a couple clients who invested into the store, not as owners, but just as like, hey, we're going to borrow some money. This is what we're doing. Here's the vision. And it was nice to have that. It's a
Would you
double-edged
say it would
sword.
be a private loan? Would it be
Private loans.
considered?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Private loans. We didn't go to the bank to do any of it. The owner gave us some vendor-backed financing for a portion of it. So it was a combination of sources for that.
Do you want to quickly speak to what that seller financing or the vendor take back? What does that mean? Just for someone who now
Oh,
this is of course if you're buying an existing business that has an existing owner. So it doesn't apply if you're just for the listeners. It doesn't apply if you're gonna buy a franchise from the franchisor that is a brand new location. This would be an existing location. A resale is essentially the term. But what is that? Tell us a little bit more about what the seller financing is, because I don't think a lot of people know that that's even an option that someone could consider.
so when you're buying a business, if the person selling it doesn't need all the capital right away, but they really want to make the sale happen, and the purchaser doesn't have quite all the funds, maybe they need 6 months or a year or some kind of payment terms. The seller would be able to give the purchaser a loan. So say somebody bought a business for $100,000. You had 80,000 but needed an extra 20. The seller could say, hey, well, you pay me in a year for an interest rate or whatever terms you want to negotiate, but the seller, will actually give that financing to the buyer for that. And usually there's some kind of collateral like the shares of the business or something else to show for collateral for that. But that's it usually I find that way to work really well because the seller now has skin in the game and the buyer has skin in the game, and both people are motivated to make sure that the business is successful. So we took vendor financing for about a year for a portion of the purchase price, and then in a year we came up with the rest of the money to pay her the difference.
Love it. Well, I thank you for sharing a little bit more on that because again, I want the listeners to
Going to say
know
one other
about,
thing towards that.
yeah.
It's not something that is thought of first. It's all in like negotiation that happens, but it is an option. If you ask and find out about if somebody was to go to the person they're buying a business from and say, "Hey, I've got this much money. I need this much help. I've got, something." You can negotiate that in, but it's usually not a traditional financing source.
Yeah, definitely. And I've been hearing about it more and more, especially I think, I don't know if this was the case of your seller, but if they're looking for retirement and they don't really have a succession plan, I think that there is more, I have seen more flexibility in doing this path. And it also gives them some consistent cash flow over, the course of months or a year or 2 years, whatever the term is. And so it could be very interesting, but again, it's on a case by case basis. So you have to just explore if it's an option for you, but it does exist, is what we want to highlight.
In Canada, there's also tax benefits to do that. If you sell a business if you sell a business and it's worth a bunch of money, the taxes on a sale can be quite large. If the vendor doesn't get paid all at once, it's a really good way to sort of defer some of that taxes into other years, which you have lower income. So that was another piece of the pie that we sort of could bring to the table.
I love that you can speak on that as well because of your uh, accounting background. So I think that that's great because you just get all these different perspectives of how to do tax planning, how to, make it work for all the parties. So I think that that's great. If we think about, let's go to the onboarding of Wild Birds Unlimited. So I'd love to hear from you. What did that onboarding experience look like? What kind of support did that look like? Did you have to go anywhere for the
Yeah.
training? Tell me a little bit about your onboarding experience. You've already signed now, you've committed.
Yeah.
Then what was the next step?
So we went down to what do they call it? The Franchise Support Center in Indiana, and they have quarterly what they call Franchise University, WBU University,
Wild Birds
Wild Birds
Unlimited
Unlimited University.
University. Got it.
And new owners and potentially their managers can go for 3 days of just intensive, immersive training. And it's not like, here's how you work the till. Here's everything from, like, they have an intranet. So here's how you look stuff up. Here are the supports. Here's people to meet. Here's some product training, a bit of knowledge like that. What are you
It's
making that face?
it's no, no, I'm just thinking I think it's geared to make sure that the new owner gets the feel and flavor of what the business is
Yeah.
supposed to be.
Yeah.
And so the training is all about, what is the mission statement? How do you operate this? Where do you go to find it? Here's all the people, you meet all the people in the FAC or the Franchise Support Center that are your resources. We had a great time.
We had a
It
great
was it
time.
was it was super fun.
Yeah. So besides that, they also have what they call owl modules. The bird puns write themselves. They are never ending. So they have owl modules, which is an online learning, and they're short little videos, and they're just ways of learning all about the products, all about sales training, some different things like that. And you can access those, you give them to your staff to use. We use them all the time. And then we were also given a coach. So your first year, you're with a new business coach. And then now that we're past our first year, we're with just another coach, and you can access them constantly. You can get regular meetings, you can send questions. They are there to support and help. And if they don't have the answers, then they tell you who to talk to and who to reach out to. So that was fantastic. She came and visited us even. And again, just like instant support and connection with these people. They're there to help us. They're not there to tell us you're doing it wrong. This is what you need to. They're literally want everybody to be successful. They want everybody to have fun because that is their ticket to success for the whole organization. And
Once
then
you've, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, beyond that, they also have other ways to connect. So they have regular meetings with other owners, groups of regional owners, and then they have a yearly, what do they call it, enterprise leadership conference that's in June in the States as well, that everybody comes together and does a big rah-rah and figure out what's going on this year. And we went last year as well. Tons of fun.
Yep.
We feel like such nerds because this is all so new and you kind of just get like immersed into this whole culture. And we just loved it. Super fun.
I think it's incredible. I was going to say, so once you've gone through the onboarding, what are some of the reasons that you'd reach out to the franchisor for support when you're kind of in the business as usual? Where have you
Oh my
leaned
God.
on the support systems?
I mean, things like what are the metrics that we should be looking at? So we're new to franchise, we're new to retail, we're new to everything about this in a lot of ways. What are the metrics? Where do we run reports from? Hey, we've got, staffing issues. Hey, we've got what suppliers should we be using? Like we knew what they're using. Is there anybody else we don't know about? what are that, they really want to talk, what are your goals? And let's write them down and let's hold you accountable to them. And gosh, like literally anything. They have to be careful because of the franchise relationship. It's not like a boss employee and they can't get involved in, like, you would know all these things. You can't get too involved in HR. You can't get too prescriptive in some of these things, but they're there to even listen if that's all you need and be like, yeah,
Yeah,
it's terrible.
absolutely. No, I love it. What's the distribution of the franchise system in Canada versus the US?
Oh,
Do
how
you,
many in Canada?
think there's
20,
27 in Canada.
not that many even maybe.
Yeah,
It's in the 20s and then 300 plus in the States.
okay, got it. How has it been for you being part of a system that's like still emerging and growing in Canada, but very established in the US?
They recognize that there are differences for Canadians, um, and they're very understanding about it. I would say more than the Canadian US has been the fact that we're on the West Coast and they're like very regionally different. And so a lot of the products that they really hype don't apply to us because we just don't have the same kind of birds.
Mm,
And so I would literally be more, I give them more feedback on that side of things than the Canadian US thing. They are very supportive of Canadians, our different issues, our the current situation now. We're not traveling to the States at all right now for various reasons, and they've been nothing but supportive.
got it. Well, I mean, that's very important. And also, what's your relationship like with your fellow Canadian franchisees or across the border? Like, how has it been for you as new owners coming into the system, but really having a big network of
Mhm.
franchisees that you can connect with?
it's a little scary at first because you don't know all these people and they're clearly know what to do. But anybody that I've reached out to, either in the before we were approved to own the store, or since, have been extremely helpful and friendly. Yeah, you end up developing little relationships and friendships, and I think that's one of the strengths for the franchise, because you do have that support. And if you're like, hey, we're not moving this product very much, but another store is, you can swap and transfer it out, or issues with customers or seasonal issues. It's everybody's there to help, from what we
So we're
found.
not really competing, right?
No.
So especially in Canada, we're quite spread out. And so nobody feels like you're stepping on toes or competing. And so we've reached out to any other local stores a little bit. We're trying to, build those relationships. We were also introduced to another new Canadian store. They were brand new. And at conference last year, they introduced us and we became fast friends and they're all the way in Ontario, and we're super tight. We like talk birds all the time and talk products and text back and forth, and yeah, we want to improve those relationships because that's where your support is. That's where all your resources are. People that have other ideas. Or people that have been doing it for a while have different skill sets. It's just been amazing. Nobody has ever poo-pooed us or said, "Oh, we don't want to talk to you."
No, I think that's great. And I think it's maybe a known, but sometimes not known how much you're going to lean on that support of your fellow franchisees. But it's such a strength to have someone who's going through the exact same,
Mhm.
they're running the same business as you, just in a different location. And so it's not, as you said, it's not competitive, especially when you have a franchise that has protected territories, like you're
Mhm.
operating in your territory, they're operating in their territory, but you're going through all the same things, like the marketing things, the HR things, like, and so you really have that built-in network of community, because entrepreneurship, especially, Andrew, you probably have felt this over the years in your accounting practice, but like it's very lonely, and it can be very lonely. And so it's a very different community that comes into play when it comes with the franchise business, and you get support from your fellow franchisees, but you also get support from HQ, and it's different types of support that you can lean on. So very, very cool. What would you say has been your favorite part about being a franchisee with Wild Birds Unlimited in your last year and a half of experience?
You want to answer that?
I would say it's what I've said before. It's been this mixture of framework and best practices and giving us some guidance, but also letting us do how we want to do it. So between that and the feeling like the staff at the franchise really do want us to succeed. They want to be our support. They're not Nobody's ever grumpy. Nobody's ever like upset that we're reaching out. Nobody's ever pissy at like everybody just really wants to support us. And it just feels like a little hug every time we talk to them.
Love that because it makes you feel probably encouraged to
Yeah.
reach out to them.
Yeah. Because yeah, I think a couple of times it's been like, I don't know what to do. And Andrew's like, why don't you call somebody?
Yeah.
Don't forget, we have a coach. We know all these people. I'm like, oh yeah, I can like get help for this. This is incredible.
I think from my perspective, some things that I enjoy dealing with the franchise or having this kind of a model is that I get to do the things that I want to do, and if there's something that I don't want to do, the system is geared up to delegate it out.
Yeah.
Or to have the support and things.
Yeah.
So you run an accounting business, you are
Everything.
you're the last stop for everything. So you get bombarded with questions, and it's basically you. With the franchise, once I'm done my part that I want to do, I can go off and spend time with the family. I can, not have to spend, never-ending hours at work. That's been really enjoyable. That was one of the main things why I decided to go back or decided to go with the franchise as opposed to just being an independent.
I love that. Um, One question I have is just regarding any challenges. So we're talking about some of the great aspects, and I think that they're all very strong points, but I also want to be maybe practical that business ownership has its challenges too. Are there any aspects of running your business that are more challenging than you expected? Probably the location piece, moving was a challenge in itself, but you've navigated that challenge very nicely. Is there anything that you deal with in the running of the business that you didn't anticipate was going to be as challenging? And if so, how are you navigating through those challenges?
So, to put this delicately, not everybody likes change. And when we took over a well-established business, there were some people that were working there that did not appreciate our style and did not want things to change. And that was very challenging for a number of months. And it just had to work itself out where people had to basically decide that they didn't want to work for us anymore. And so we had a fair amount of turnover and it was stressful at the time, but 100% the best for everybody. That if they didn't want to work with us anymore and they were making it challenging for us, then it was great for everybody to move on. So staffing, HR issues are always probably the biggest stress. If they go south, that can be the biggest problem. Um, Other than that, it's been probably just the learning curve because we're new to retail and we're new to this industry. And we're both like high achievers and sort of feeling like, especially me, I feel like I'm not doing it right. I feel like a total imposter. I feel like, every time I learn about a new way of doing something or something maybe we haven't done yet, I'm like, oh my God, we're failing. And we're really not. And so to just keep telling ourselves that it's a process, we're still learning, we can only do as much as we can do. This is supposed to be fun. This is not our full-time gig. We do have kids at home and pets and each other and the fact that we are still married is pretty cool. We've made it through it all. There are for sure challenges. You just have to keep them in perspective.
I think that's a perfect perspective of just keeping things, where they are and where they should land and what's, a priority and what's permanent and what's not permanent and surprise, nothing is permanent and everything is fluid and keeps changing.
Spoiler.
Yeah, spoiler alert, exactly.
Something that's helped us along the way is that, you get into all these things and it's not perfect. And I think you have to step back and say Rome wasn't built in a day, and just go, what's mission critical, what is not ideal, but just don't worry about it and just, get little pieces to work on every day. And after a number of months or a specific time, period of time, you'll have moved the whole mountain over to where it should be. So yeah, we had to have a lot of patience, restraint, things with the business, but yeah, basically just take it one step at a time, and the whole thing isn't going to change in overnight, right? Like we're a year and a half into it, and
We're still learning what we don't even know. We're
yeah,
still learning the things that, oh, we don't even know what we don't know, and we're still just getting a picture of that.
but many of the slivers have already been worked out. Staffing, moving, parking, lots of things have sort of moved, and it's easy to get discouraged, I think, along the way. And I mean, that was my problem all growing up. I'm not doing enough. I have to work harder. I have to work faster. I have to work smarter, right? And that was sort of the drive that would always run around my head. But here, it's lessons on how to slow it down, how to take off what you can chew. You have to be ready for tomorrow. You have to have that high energy sort of floor sales strategy. So you need to reserve some of your efforts and energy, right? So yeah, it's been a very interesting learning curve on that.
So I don't know if you've had any friends or family come to you and ask you for advice regarding maybe investing in a franchise business themselves. But my question to you would be if you had any advice for a prospective franchisee, someone who's considering maybe is the franchise pathway the right pathway for me? And Andrew, considering that you had one really not good experience and one really great experience, and also Kimberly, from your experience, what advice would you give to someone who's considering franchising? What questions should they be maybe asking of themselves or of the franchisor?
Yeah, so I've had my first one was not that great. Um, along my accounting career, I've helped a number of people and still have accounting clients that do have franchises with various different industries, either in the food sector or construction. So I kind of see what goes out there and what people's problems are. Our experience with this current Wild Birds Unlimited franchise, I think my advice would be make sure you know what your goals are and what you're trying to do. And then really investigate the franchise and make sure that it lines up with your goals. Because every franchise is not the same. All it is the people in the franchise make the franchise. And if you're very clear and purposeful on that, then you'll probably have a good time. You'll always have challenges. It's a business. You're going to have all the challenges surrounding the business, but if you're not on this even playing field, if you're not equally yoked on that side with the franchise and you, it will be a disaster. Um, but we sort of skipped over the interview process of becoming a franchise, and that was one of the hurdles to be in the running to buy it. You had to get approved by the franchise, and I started that process not really knowing. It was still an interview on both sides, right? You apply and you're not in until they say you're in, and you
Want to be
validate
in?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So through that process of that interview, I had to talk to other store owners. I had to go off and look at other independent stores and do market research. I had to continually ask myself, and it was part of the questionnaires and things, is this franchise still right for you? And as I went through that process, it became clear that this was the right franchise. Once I went through that, it didn't matter if bought or sold this business. I would have started another one with Wild Birds because of the things that we learned through that. But yeah, definitely have very clear goals. Spend the time, spend the effort. It's frustrating for most people. Most people do not write down their goals. They do not clarify that at all. But if you do, you are so much more likely to have success and fun and to actually, stick it out.
I love that you also went back and touched on that because it's an important piece of the due diligence process. And as you said, um, it is a two-way, interview process, or at least it should be a two-way interview process where you are interviewing the brand and making sure that it checks all your boxes. And so you have to know what the boxes are that you're wanting to check. And they're also making sure that they feel that you're going to be successful. Kimberly said it, like the beauty of it is that they want you to be successful because they're successful. And so it's a true symbiotic relationship. So we talked a little bit about where you are right now. And I would love to ask, where do you want to go? Like, what's the goals of, if we look 5 years down the road, where would you like to be with Wild Birds Unlimited in, let's say a half a decade? Do you want to have more stores? Do you want to continue to operate this very established, 30 plus year history store that is very well known in your community? What does the future look like for you guys?
Oh boy, that's a big question. I'll answer for me because mine will be much shorter. I want to feel like I know that we have systems in place, that we're running the store efficiently, and that I can come and go as it makes sense for my life that week, not feeling like we are required to be an integral, operational part of the store, that we are choosing our roles and we're getting there. It's definitely moved in that direction. But I know Andrew has lofty goals.
Yeah, first and foremost, I want to make sure that everybody on the team that we have is it's a win-win situation.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
no matter if it's sales staff or admin staff, everybody, it has to be a win-win relationship. And only then will the business run and we'll be happy with it. It's nothing worse than having misaligned goals. Because if you're winning, the other person's not, and something bad will happen. It always does. In terms of the longer term goals, yeah, you jump into it, and I sort of get really enthusiastic about having multiple stores, and I see other people having like 2, 3, 10, and I go, well, I could do that.
You can do that.
I can do
What
that.
do you think, Kimberly?
What do you think? But if you build the groundwork and that is that goes well, I think then the next doors will open. So in 5 years, yeah, I could see having 2 or 3 more stores in different places if everything works out.
I love it. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak with both of you and get to know more about your story. I just have one more question that I'd love to ask, which is, what is one truth about franchising that you know now that you didn't know before you bought into this business?
I didn't know a ton about franchises, honestly. I assumed it was very top-down, prescriptive, cookie cutter. And I guess now I've learned that there are a lot of different ways to run a franchise, and that just because the franchise exists doesn't mean it's successful or would be successful. It's not just, oh, anybody could plug in and run a franchise. You have to really
You have to have the passion.
you have to have the passion for it. Yeah. And you have to really understand what the business is about. And like Andrew's saying, make sure it fits. Their model, their particular model fits for how you would want to run it.
That's really good.
Andrew, anything to add?
No, I think that's kind of sums it up.
Awesome. Well, thank you so very much. As I said, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to hear more about your story. I look forward to following along and potentially seeing some more Wild Birds Unlimited locations in BC.
Yeah. Thanks, Renee.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Franchise Canada Chats. I'm Renée Boudakian with Rubicon Franchise Partners, and this podcast is produced by Joelle Kidd with the Canadian Franchise Association. Missed an episode? You can find Franchise Canada Chats on Spotify, SoundCloud, or wherever you get your podcasts. For expert insights, success stories, and franchise opportunities, visit franchisecanada.online. And while you're there, subscribe to Franchise Canada e-News, a trusted resource for aspiring franchisees looking to achieve their dreams and build their franchise future. If you're exploring franchise ownership, check out lookforafranchise.ca or learn more about franchising at cfa.ca. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time.